In this video, we're going to do a deep dive in an app called Knowify, which is an add-on app to QuickBooks Online or QuickBooks Desktop. I'm actually going to go in the description and put some links, the links to this app, the links to other videos I have about construction accounting in general. All that stuff should be useful. But in this particular tutorial, what's going to be really helpful is for you to understand what Knowify can do beyond the basic construction and trade contractor type features that you get to see in QuickBooks. So if you are using QuickBooks yourself as a construction company, as a trade contractor, or even as an accountant helping these type of businesses, and you feel that QuickBooks kind of falls short, you're definitely going to have to add a third-party app like Knowify. So I strongly encourage you to check out knowify.com, request a demo, have someone like Vincent do a one-on-one demo for you to teach you how Knowify can work or adapt to your particular construction business's needs. And one more thing, if you're an accounting professional like myself, bookkeeper, CPA, consultant to construction industry, you want to take a look at the Certified Advisor program because they'll teach you how to use Knowify and a lot of topics that deeply relate to construction and trade contractors, especially from the context of an accountant, a consultant, or advisor. So without further ado, let's jump right into our full tutorial of Knowify. Welcome everybody to this presentation of QuickBooks Online for construction and contractors using Knowify. I partner with Knowify. We bring you up-to-date information about the best way to manage your clients in construction and contractors that want to use QuickBooks Online, whether you're moving away from QuickBooks Desktop, from some other accounting system, or you currently have QuickBooks Online and you feel there's tons of deficiencies on the construction part of accounting. I think this video is going to be perfect for you and you're going to love Knowify. So with that being said, I have Vin from Knowify here. And Vin, would you want to present yourself really quick?
Hey everyone, I'm Vin from the Knowify team. I'm a product expert and currently manage the support team here at Knowify. I've been working with Knowify for 8 years now. And Knowify, for those that don't know, is a construction management app that integrates directly with QuickBooks. We have an industry-leading integration with QuickBooks Online. We're also the first and currently the only app that winds up syncing with QuickBooks Online Advanced projects, and we are accountant approved on the Intuit marketplace. So in Knowify, we try to break things down to capture client data at these key stages. Each job, there's not a one-size-fits-all solution for it. So different things are going to be important to different types of contractors. But for the most part, Knowify helps by initiating a project budget. This will help us plan for the rest of the job and help us evaluate where we are in regards to what we initially estimated. This will help us forecast for future jobs and help us to see how close we are to being on track for current projects. Starting with this budget, this allows us to add a markup and create a bid to either our customer or our general contractor, depending on which trade we're in. So rather than us just sending out a bid and quoting a job, this will allow us to make informed decisions and ensure that we have an idea of how much the job is going to cost us first, so we can ensure that we're profitable in the long run and that we're managing every aspect of the job along the way. Once this is all set, this is essentially our planning stages. Then we move to tracking project cost. This is where Knowify really excels in just being able to update in real time exactly where we are on our projects. So for example, if I have an employee using Knowify's mobile application and checking in and checking out of a job in the field, on the office side, I'm able to see my cost of labor update automatically. So I know exactly where I stand at any given moment on a project. And while this will help us on the AP and the costing side of things, Knowify also helps with change orders, contract management, and progress invoicing. So we also have this same level of detail for the AR side of things and just making sure that we're keeping up our revenue to match and exceed our cost and be profitable.
And to be clear, all this stuff is happening in Knowify. None of these things are being touched in QuickBooks, but the end result of this, like the invoice and the payment, essentially syncs up with QuickBooks. And all these project costs you're talking about, they sync up with QuickBooks, and they also show on the projects page. So you can both track your profitability by project in QuickBooks and Knowify, correct?
Yes, exactly. Knowify will give you that enhanced job visibility and more detail at the job level. And QuickBooks obviously is our accounting platform. Now, between these two things, there's a lot of overlap, and that's where our industry leading integration comes into play. Anything that's going to affect the accounting side of things, Knowify is set to integrate. So, to your point, Hector, we're going to wind up managing and entering the stuff initially for our job related data in Knowify. And anything accounting related, as well as being able to sync the project across and show profitability at the project level, is all set to sync to QuickBooks Online Advanced. And that's why Intuit has partnered with Knowify. Knowify and QuickBooks Online Advanced acts as a single source of financial truth for you and your clients. This really does give us the best of both worlds so that we can inhibit a system that allows the contractor and project managers to do what they do best and be able to track what they need to track, and the accountant and bookkeepers to be able to track what they need to track without having to enter things in two different places more than once. Your clients and the teams work in Knowify, and you work in QuickBooks. I like to highlight this quote from Sunny here. As an accountant and bookkeeper, my favorite thing about Knowify is that it syncs perfectly with QuickBooks. It gives me what I need on my side for accurate financial reporting, and to give my clients what they need on their side to run their businesses. And this is ultimately what the goal of our integration is, so that everybody can focus on what they do best, and we don't need to take any extra steps to get the information in the correct place. So that's real-time project data without double entry. And our partnership winds up filling those construction workflow gaps in QuickBooks Online Advanced and adds a ton of more functionality on top of that. And here's where Knowify can help. These are the 7 things that we compiled that wind up being the biggest gaps in QuickBooks Online Advanced currently for construction. And I would like to highlight and show you in the product how Knowify fills these gaps and then some.
And while QuickBooks Online can kind of do some of these things, this is where it falls short. This is where people go, man, I wish it would go to the next level, it would do the next step. But QuickBooks Online is generic accounting software that's supposed to work for all industries. QuickBooks Online is never going to go this depth into any specific industry, construction or otherwise. This is why you need a third-party app that focuses just on this industry, that understands that inside these 7 points here, workflow, contract management, progress invoicing, change orders, A&A billing, job costing, and budget reporting, there's a world of options and specific needs that generic accounting software can't produce. So you need specialized software.
Exactly. This is where Knowify can help. So here I'm going to move in and switch back and forth between Knowify, and I also have my QuickBooks Online account here. And I'll essentially show a little bit more of the project section right now, what QuickBooks Online Advanced has to offer, and we'll highlight where Knowify fills in these gaps. I'll also like to demonstrate how quick and seamless our integration with QuickBooks is. So when I finalize data that needs to be entered and filed on the accounting side, that it's available to me in QuickBooks within seconds. So first, I want to start by highlighting the project section of QuickBooks. Now, this is not something that was available a couple of years ago, so you may have tried out QuickBooks Online prior to them having this, but this winds up being a very powerful tool on the QuickBooks end and with QuickBooks Online Advanced. So at least there is now a dedicated section to manage different types of projects, and at least at a glance, the contractor or the user is able to see how profitable they are against all of their projects here. They can see their cost, their income. They can also enter in an estimate, so they can manage this against an initial budget. And they can run some project reports and just kind of see at a glance their totals, which income service, which income account, which expense account, everything is being pointed to. And most importantly, how profitable they are at a project level. So they have the way to see some transactions here. We have some project level reports. But where Knowify fills the gaps is we're going to give this and a lot more so that this way QuickBooks can focus on the accounting end of things where they excel. And Knowify can focus on the contract management because we speak contractor and we understand what a lot of the contractors are looking for in their projects. And we've built a system that really helps accomplish all of that. Like I mentioned earlier, Knowify is not limited to a specific trade or industry. We're also not limited to a specific type of contractor. We support people that just want to get a basic level of their job tracking. And we also support the people that want to track every little thing and forecast their jobs. There's always a place for someone at Knowify. So here on the Knowify side, you can see our home screen. So we make it very easy for us to navigate to different aspects of the account. This also at a high level kind of gives us more information about all the things that Knowify tracks at the job level. We'll manage different types of jobs, whether they're service projects, contract work. We have our QuickBooks section under our core, so we can keep track of anything syncing back and forth. And we can even set up the default mapping so that when we do send something to QuickBooks, we don't just send it there automatically. We send it to the correct of your chart of accounts just to make sure that it's one less step you have to do on the QuickBooks side. Knowify manages purchases, vendor invoices, and customer invoices all in the same place. We also help plan for projects with scheduling and tasks. And we have our time tracking, which has real-time labor cost tracking. We have ways to run reports both at the job level and company-wide. And a dashboard, you can see a preview of what the dashboard looks like here so that we can see how we're performing as a company at a high level at any given time. And we're able to easily sync in and out of clients, vendors, and our products and services. So I want to come into our contract job section of Knowify, which is something we commonly refer to as our beating heart. Now, just as a comparison, you can see that we do give the profitability here, just like QuickBooks would against all of their projects. However, Knowify is helping us with budgeting the project, helping us factor in work in progress, essentially giving us a more detailed view, both at a glance and drilling in further to the job itself. So I can see all of my projects here in one place. Knowify also helps us track jobs by different statuses. We track the life of a project when it goes from a lead to when we're bidding on it, to when we send it out for a digital e-signature, to when it is active or pending a change order.
Finn, a quick question. Are
Sure.
those, click on the project statuses again.
Yes.
Are those customizable or do you have a predetermined steps in the workflow that you pick from?
Yeah, great question. So these statuses, these are automated. They're not customizable because they refer to exactly where we are in the contract. So this is set automatically. So for example, if we send a contract out for signature, the status in Knowify updates automatically. And once it's signed, we switch it to active. So these specifically are not customizable. We have a number of different ways for contractors to customize their own different fields and different statuses. We have a workflow board where the contractor can keep track of all this information here in one place and kind of see it at a board level. And we can also enter job tags so that we can easily search and sort through different tags and keywords that are more specific to our company.
So the tags are the customizable parts. And can you switch back to the other workflow view?
Yes.
Yeah, so I like that a lot because essentially Knowify creates a structure for the construction companies, for the contractors to follow. And the structure is that there's a natural way that that jobs come in. You know, one, the job is not a real job; it's just a potential job. That's a lead, right? And then the next step is we got to get the client to approve the price, right? That's the bidding process. Okay. Then we need them to sign it. We need it to be official. And you have an electronic signature system so you can keep track of all that stuff in one shot. So there's nowhere in here we're doing any paperwork. Okay. Then obviously the job could fall off. It could expire if you put a ticking time bomb on how long they have until they can approve the job. And then once the job is active, it's work. Then it goes into active, and then it goes into the latter part or the workflow. Could you scroll to the right a little bit just so we can see what comes after active? So and
Yes.
then active would be like your regular closed job, the ones that you're working on. If there's going to be a change order, if somebody requested a change order, I assume it goes into that pending changes area. And then once the job is completely out, it's not active, it's completed. This is whether they pay you or not. This is just whether there's like active people working on this. It moves to close, and that's the natural order of almost all construction companies and contractors. Yes, some companies could have a different sort of sub workflow in these, which I assume there's a place to put notes and tags and other things that can be customized. But this is the general premise that you want all the companies to understand that at a high level, this is the life cycle of all the projects.
Exactly. I mean, we mentioned earlier that there's not really a wrong way to use Knowify, but we find that a lot of the jobs will follow that similar workflow to budget, track, invoice, and manage our change orders. So we, as a software as a service, we try to not only provide a good solution for everybody, but also to help keep the contractor organized and have everything follow this natural flow of progression of a particular project.
Now, in my experience, once they're in the active bucket, inside the active bucket, there's also all sorts of things going on, usually referred to as phases. Can you show us what that workflow looks like once we are in like phase mode?
Yeah, absolutely. So within any project, I'll actually highlight one of the active jobs I have here first. We have in our plan and track section a number of different job phases here. This allows me to not only keep track of the cost and our budget for the job as a whole, but it also lets me isolate these costs for each individual phase. And the phase is something that you can enter on your own. So this phase can be different from company to company based on what is important to you for tracking. And not only will we track the cost at the phase level, but we'll also be able to schedule and set dates at the phase level. So not only are we, managing the cost and the revenue for the job as a whole, we're also helping to show the contractor what aspect of the project they're coming in under or over budget on, or where they're right on track.
Which means, Vin, I assume that every time you create a project, you also have to create the phases and let Knowify know what is the cost of each phase, so you can know what that looks like. And you can have, I assume, like phases templates that you can use across multiple jobs, or you can have jobs that will have their own unique phasing system that you will use once and once only. So like you have a deep understanding that for many construction companies and contractors, 90% of the jobs may look the same, but there's always, a few that could look different. So I would love to see what that looks like when you actually put together the estimate with the phases. If you could demonstrate that as soon as you're done showing this page.
Yeah, absolutely. So to that point, we actually have a job template. So any project that we create, we can save as a template. So if this is a common scope of a lot of my projects here that I'm going to be using for future jobs, I can save this as a template to help save me some time building new projects later. When we load in a template to a new job, we can also make specific changes because we might be following a similar flow as this project, but we might be dealing with a different size property or different specifics, or we might need to schedule different types of employees. So that's something you can always customize at the job level, but we're all about trying to help save time here. So I'm going to go ahead.
You mind expanding one of these, like framing, for example, so we can see what that looks like inside of the phase?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. So I had taken the time to budget my material cost here and budget the amount of labor that I need. And we could start tracking that labor. So for example, I can see, at a high level that we're still on track for our cost against our budget here. But I can also see that I haven't actually purchased any materials yet. So I'm actually a little bit over budget on my labor, budget being the number on the right and the cost to date being the number on the left that updates in real time. We also make it easy so that when we do budget a list of materials, I can actually flip this directly into a purchase order with just a couple of clicks rather than me having to go out of my way, navigate to another part of the system, and start building this from scratch. We really try to keep everything in one place and automate it across the life of the job.
Quick question, Vin. When you go create a purchase order for the copper and studs, for example, how does Knowify know which vendor to create that purchase order for? Does that happen on the next screen?
Yeah, exactly. So at this point, we can just determine from our initial cost estimate how many of each of these items. Knowify is reminding us how many we budgeted. So let's just say, for example, I want to take all of the copper and half of the studs. I can click here to start PO process. And Knowify brings me from the job into our purchases screen here, where I can select the type of purchase this is, whether this is an expense paid for upfront with cash or a card, whether this is an open purchase order that the vendor is going to send us an invoice for later, or if this is a reimbursement that we're paying for upfront and the company is going to reimburse me for. At this point, I'm now able to select my vendor, and the vendor list here, as well as the customer and item list, all syncs bidirectionally with QuickBooks Online Advanced. So anything I have in QuickBooks is going to be available to me here in Knowify as well.
So whether you're planning for the purchase, such as actually creating a formal purchase order, sending it to the vendor, getting a bill later and paying later, or a Home Depot receipt got thrown on your desk, you would follow the same process and you would select, okay, this was just something that was already paid for. That way you can keep track of the individual materials, labor, whatever you're spending for each project. So basically, this all will tie to accounts payable and expenses later on in the future once it syncs into QuickBooks Online, I assume, correct?
Yes, exactly. So at this point, we're going to sync over this cost once we get the invoice from the vendor. But if this is a Home Depot receipt that we swiped a company card for, I would be able to log it as an expense. So as soon as I submit this, you'll see that we do have this box checked off. Unless I come in and uncheck this manually, by the time I finish submitting it, it will be in QuickBooks in the associated chart of accounts.
Okay, that's perfect. And the third option you had there, the reimbursement option, that's if the employee had to pay out of pocket for whatever reason, and you have to pay them later on for that, right?
Exactly. I mean, this basically makes the employee the vendor in this case. We do log an associated bill with this reimbursement. So this is obviously something that will transfer across to QuickBooks. We're just paying the employee rather than paying the vendor itself.
Perfect.
So I can go ahead and create this purchase order here to see some costs against my project. Knowify does not only just helps the communication between the accounting end and the contractor end, but we also help facilitate the communication between members of the team internally in Knowify and also with our customers and vendors. So we mentioned previously how we can send out our proposals and our bids and contracts out to our customers for a digital e-signature. We have that same option with our purchase orders where we can actually email this PO to our vendor and include any relevant details here that we need to include so that they're aware of. And we have this on file, and we're essentially at this point just waiting for them to send us an invoice.
Now, do you also pay them electronically somehow through Knowify, or you would use your standard accounts payable workflows for that?
We would say using the standard accounts payable workflow for it. In Knowify, you can record a payment, and that will sync to the default payment account that you have set up in QuickBooks. So it can still help with that process. But our payment processing is essentially on the customer side, where we integrate directly with Intuit Payments. And this way they can pay electronically the invoice. That's just available for the customer invoices. These vendor ones, we recommend the standard AP flow.
So if the QuickBooks user has Bill.com or Melio or any third-party accounts payable processing system, this will work just fine because the bill just gets synced into QuickBooks, and then QuickBooks syncs the bills with another third-party system to make payable. So Knowify currently doesn't manage payables to vendors. It enters the purchase order, enters the bill, but then allows you to use your standard AP system or some other AP system to pay those things, correct?
Exactly. Yep. And then once those are paid, however they're paid in QuickBooks, we tick that off, we pull that in, and this way we show that bill as paid in Knowify. Because in Knowify, you'll be able to see, across all of your bills. I'm just going to jump to the bill section quick. I can see what's outstanding, what's due currently, what's overdue. So however this winds up getting paid in QuickBooks, whether it's through Bill.com or a third-party app, as long as it's this bill, Knowify will recognize that, import the payment automatically. And this way, when we look at this dashboard here, it's completely up to date based on what payments have been processed in QuickBooks.
So let's make a very important statement to make sure that everybody that's watching this understands like sort of where the line is. If the payable or the bill or the purchase order or the expense is related to a job, it's strongly recommended that it's initiated in Knowify. That way it's job costed correctly. It's tied to the item of the job or to the face of the job, okay? If the bill has to do with administrative costs and doesn't have any jobs associated with it, you can just enter those in QuickBooks directly. You don't have to bring those into Knowify. But my question to you is, what if there's a sort of internal expenses that you want to record in Knowify that are not necessarily tied to a job? Do you also track those in Knowify?
Yes, absolutely. So back at our home screen under the core, we have our contract jobs, service jobs, but you'll also see this internal job section. This is what we find other users use for the ability to track things that aren't job related, but they still want to track in Knowify. So this is commonly where we see people log sick time, vacation time, office related expenses, or if they're purchasing things for inventory. So it's not related to a job, but they want to log it in Knowify. They want it to sync seamlessly to QuickBooks. We do have an internal project section here where we can help manage things that are not job specific.
And the reason why that's particularly valuable, because you would think, yeah, why would you do it in Knowify where you could just do it in QuickBooks? Is because what I found is when I add a third-party app workflow to any small business, typically the employees they give access to these sort of things, they don't give them access to QuickBooks. So what the nice thing about adding a third-party app is you have a lot more controls about what you don't want that employee to see on the accounting side. The accounting could have sensitive information like how much the owner gets paid or what's the total profitability of the business. Whereas an employee that only has access to Knowify, that enters both admin, internal cost type of bills and job costing could just stay in Knowify and doesn't have to have access to QuickBooks as well. That's where I found that particular featurette here that a lot of third-party apps don't have very valuable.
Exactly. I mean, that's the goal of the integration, to allow each side to focus on what they do best. And this keeps the contractor and the user entering those receipts out of QuickBooks. And even if it's not job related, it still gives them the way to be able to track it. And then also, if you track it in an internal project in Knowify, you get access to all of our job reporting and our industry leading reporting aspect here as well.
Okay. So before we go to reporting, which I think will be the next thing we want to see, could you do a full walkthrough? I won't interrupt you. I want to ask you questions. Can you do a full walkthrough of, okay, we're bidding the job, we're sending it out for approval, we're starting to invoice it in progress, entering a couple of expenses, and then finally seeing the report, the job costing report, which is the most valuable piece of this whole thing?
Yeah, absolutely. So I actually have a project here that I started building. And it is still in the bidding process. So all I've done so far is enter in a budget and started the bidding process. So we can actually pick this one up here. I wanted to show how this does integrate directly into QuickBooks. So even though I haven't started job costing actively yet, and I don't even have an active contract, I'll find in my project section of QuickBooks that this job is still available. Now, I just want to highlight, a lot of what Knowify does best is help forecast and help planning on the job level from the beginning throughout the end of the job. So you can see in QuickBooks, because we haven't logged any costs, because we haven't invoiced yet, there's nothing for us to see here. But you can see in Knowify, just by entering a cost budget and just by starting the process of creating my bid, I'm able to see what my projected profitability is. I'm able to kind of get this information here front and center, see what my profit loss is going to be. I mean, we start helping the contractor manage the job as this is what we do best.
And QuickBooks is an accounting system, which means you only record things that have happened. You're talking about estimating how much you can make if the project does go through. So usually you can't see this type of information in QuickBooks because this is non-posting information. So when it comes to planning for a job, trying to figure out how much to charge for a job, how much my job is going to cost me, and how much am I going to make at the job at the very end, this is where I know if I could be very useful because you don't have to actually post any transactions in QuickBooks Online to actually get calculated amounts.
Exactly. And the idea behind the integration is that you get the best of both worlds. So you have this type of planning and forecasting and management at the job level in Knowify. And then when we do start entering in receipts, invoices, payments, things like that, that will all sync across seamlessly to QuickBooks. We'll run through a couple of examples so you can see how quick and efficient the sync is and how that information gets here so that it allows QuickBooks to manage the accounting and do what they do best. So here's my project here, and I just want to highlight what I've covered so far. So this is I'm in budget mode here. I have 5 different phases for this project. And at this point, I'm entering my estimated cost. I'm just planning. I don't have an active contract yet, but I want to get an idea of how much the job is going to cost me so that when I am bidding, I can make sure that I'm going to ensure profitability.
So we're
So
not
here,
talking about pricing for the job yet. We're not talking about how much the customer is going to pay. We're simply just figuring out, hey, my client wants me to do an expansion to their living room. Okay, we scoped out the job. This is what it would cost me. So you start fundamentally with how much it would cost you. So then you can plan for how much you're going to charge and how much profit and markup you want to add to that.
exactly. So, I mean, the 2 main sections of every job in Knowify are our plan and track section. And this is essentially your AP side. Everything here is internal. This is how much the job is going to cost us. At this point, I'm estimating it. And once it's active, I'm going to be tracking it in real time. The proposal is what will ultimately become the contract section. And that's our AR side. That's the client facing side. And that's us setting up how much we stand to make on the project. So at this point, I'm planning out my job with just some of these job phases. And like I mentioned earlier, we can support not only a wide variety of industries, but a lot of different types of contractors. There are certain contractors that don't have a lot of time to enter on, a software or to spend with tech. So they want to keep things simple and just kind of manage things at a high level. So in each phase, I can actually enter a budget with a lump sum amount, and this gives me my budgeted cost for the phase. This is all that's required to plan this in here. But we have other users that want to drill into every little detail and want to get that extra level of forecasting so that we can plan to be profitable on future jobs as well. And we can see not only where, but like which specific aspect of the job we are wind up going over budget. So that's where I'll move to our next phase, our demolition here, where I still have the lump sums, but I'm actually gathering these budgets by estimating specific materials, specific types of employees, and specific equipment. So Knowify can help as a tool for estimating where we are setting up a default rate for our items, a default billing rate for our employees and labor costs, and a default rate for our equipment whenever we need to use it on an hourly basis. This way in Knowify, we're just plugging in how much we're planning, both quantity and hours, and we're taking care of filling in these budgets for them. And like we mentioned, this is something that we can save as a template. So, we use this on this job, we see how it goes, then we import this template to a new job, and based on our success rate on this job, we can kind of make any adjustments for the next job as needed.
I guess you can start with something high level if you want to just get the bid out, get a general idea for what it would cost you. Then once it gets approved, you can go back to the drawing board and redo your budget by individual materials, by individual laborer, by individual contractor, by individual equipment. So you kind of have the flexibility to keep it all at high level, to just do it 100% detail by line item, or be able to change it mid job so you can adapt to how you want to track the job, right? Like both of those things are useful, are available.
Yes, exactly. Actually, the budgeting process itself is optional. We have different job costing types where we can just help customers that just want to be able to create their bid, track their costs, get that real-time profitability. They can skip past the budgeting step. This is an optional piece in Knowify. I just find it to be a very valuable tool because it helps reverberate through the course of the project. But yes, to your point, we can do high level or we can drill down to every little detail and anything in between.
I like that.
I also just want to highlight that we have different types of cost here too. So we're managing the cost at the phase level, but we're also breaking it out so we can see which areas of the job are costing us more or less than what we anticipated. So we have our materials, labor, and subcontractor costs, all very straightforward. We also have our equipment cost and our miscellaneous cost. Equipment is managed two different ways in Knowify. We can manage internal equipment. This is equipment that we own or we rent on an hourly basis. So we can actually estimate the amount of hours. I can have my employee on his mobile application log that he started using that machine at this time, stopped using it at this time, and get real-time accurate job costing for that piece of equipment. But we also have external equipment as well. So rather than us tracking on an hourly basis, I can set up my vendor as an equipment vendor, and any purchase that I log for that vendor will get classified as an equipment cost here in Knowify. Same thing with our miscellanea. We can set up different vendors to be miscellaneous vendors. And this way, we'll factor that aspect of the budget in when we're job costing in real time as well. So we wind up seeing a lot of contractors have their different aspects of the project here, but then there are other things, the travel, things that you wind up costs that you wind up incurring that aren't necessarily part of the standard job costing categories. They can track these as miscellaneous expenses as well. And we can make sure that this is a phase in the job because this is a cost that we are incurring for this project and want to be able to track.
And to be clear, we're in plan and track stage. So none of this stuff is posted into our accounting system. This is just for us to pre-bid to know or estimate how much this job would cost us. And again, including equipment that we're maybe not paying for. We already bought it. We bought it 3 years ago. The equipment is sitting there. Maybe even labor that you're not paying for, like the owner's time or something like that. So the idea is to get real fair market value of the cost of doing this job, regardless of whether there is cash coming out of your pocket or is going to use an internal resource.
Exactly. And to your point, none of this has hit the accounting end yet. So you can see the amount of time that I spent planning and really setting up this project in QuickBooks in the project section, which they will track profitability, they will give us a glance, and they will be directly in the same place as our accounting end. We don't have anything yet for this project. Like you said earlier, the accounting end is things that have happened. Knowify is also helping with things that they're planning to happen. So that'll move us into the next stage where I can actually take this budget and my cost estimate and I can use it when I'm bidding to my customer. This way I can see how much I'm planning on the job costing me when I'm determining how much I'm going to charge for that work. So I'm going to go across to the draft proposal here. Once I move to this section of the project, I'm going to wind up facing the client-facing side. So this is, at this point, we're setting up what the customer is going to see and what they're ultimately going to pay for the work that we've performed. Now, you can see I entered in some of the cost here. I want to detail that a little bit further, but at the top, we show how much we're estimating the cost to be. Based on what I've entered on my bid, this is how much I stand to make on the project. And based on these two numbers, I can see my projected profit and my projected profit margin percentage. And this, if I make one little change here, this will update at the top automatically. So everything is real time. So I can see exactly how much I stand to make based on changes I'm making to this bid. Now, this bid in Knowify, just like we mentioned earlier about high level or detailed, you can set this as basic or as detailed as you would like for your customer. We produce a proposal document here that we can show additional information, such as a description of services, or we can actually list the specific items as a breakdown of materials. We don't show the markup to the customer, so this is just an internal tool here for us to help get to that exact cost that we need to. I can also wind up entering a markup for all my materials and all my labor that I budgeted here. So rather than going in and manually marking up every individual piece, I'm saying, hey, all my materials, 50%, all my labor, 40%. I can actually apply this to either all labor across all of my line items, or I can apply this to everything.
Awesome. I love that.
And you might notice that the line items here on the contract match my job phases. So I mentioned earlier that the budgeting process is optional, but I do like showcasing how that really reverberates through the course of the whole project. And we can use that initial budget to really streamline the ability to bid and ensure that we're going to be profitable. Now I can have all my line items here. I can always add to this without adding to my budget. There are a lot of people that the way they track the project is not the way they're going to bill it. So these two sections can always act independent of one another. I'm going to keep it just directly linked for the sake of this example, but that is an option that we always have. And we can also put in terms and conditions or any kind of verbiage, inclusions, exclusions, anything important to the contractor, because this is going to be a legally binding document. I can send this out for a digital e-signature through Knowify. And when they sign that, that's essentially legally binding, so that that customer is agreeing to the terms and the prices. So I can put in any kind of defaults here, and I can set up a default in my settings so that I'm not copying and pasting. I'm not entering this every time. I'm loading it in here with just one click.
Is there a character limit on the terms and conditions, or could it be like a whole page?
It could be a whole page. And there's no limit here into this box. I also want to note that Knowify does have a service where we can customize the look of the documents on the back end as well. So, I mean, we've had people say like, hey, I want the same terms on every proposal, but I want them formatted like this, or I want it to appear like this. That's something that we can always do on our side. It is a service that comes with your subscription. And just to kind of give you an idea of our stock template, like I mentioned, we have some very detailed templates that we've worked on, but just for you to see how we show the customer information, some of the job information here, how the customer can really, the user can really choose to show extra detail or keep it basic. Like I can just have my line item name, my total price. I can show a description of services. I can list specific items here. Notice that we're hiding those markups so that they're only seeing how much they're due to pay us for the course of the completion of the job. And then this is where our terms and conditions would come into play. Anything I have entered in that box, and our signature goes out on sending, and their signature gets put on here when they sign. And when they sign, we wind up getting a signed copy of that document emailed to us and stored on the job. So it's always accessible at any time. Did you want me to kind of showcase that e-signature, or we can always just manually make it active? In a lot of cases, there are, maybe the job started before they were using Knowify, or it was a verbal agreement. We can always bypass the signature if needed.
Okay. Yeah, we can just show that, make it active, and then just go through the invoicing.
Awesome. Yes. So at this point, once my contract is either signed or I've manually made it active, I now have an active contract that I can start invoicing against, and I can start tracking my cost to date in real time. I set this project up with AIA style billing because I wanted to showcase some of the options that Knowify offers with AIA billing, where we'll transfer to accounts receivable in QuickBooks, but Knowify produces an AIA document that we wind up seeing as a big pain point of a lot of users in the construction space currently. We wind up providing a solution there that really winds up saving a lot of time and a lot of headaches. So I'm just going to enter a GC contract number and date here. One of the things in our PowerPoint that we highlighted as being something that Knowify fills as a gap is the retainage. So Knowify will help track retention on these projects throughout the course of the job. What I'll do is I'll enter in how much retention I'm holding for both labor and or materials. And then Knowify will take this percentage out of every invoice and keep it on file for us to run in reports, not syncing it to the sales account in QuickBooks until it is collected at the end of the project.
That's going to save so much time, especially if he does it on every invoice.
Exactly. I mean, there's a lot of workarounds. We've seen people use journal entries and things like that to manage retainage in QuickBooks. But this is something that we help automate the process. And then we can even set up a feature where we sync retention to QuickBooks as a journal entry. And you can choose a different asset or asset account or any kind of your chart of accounts where you want to hold that retention until the job is complete, at which point we transfer that retention amount into the sales account. So that's something that we help automate the process of. So again, we can allow QuickBooks to manage the accounting end that they do best. And at any point during this project in Knowify, the contractor can see, how much has been retained so far and how much they've built. So at this point, I've done a lot on this job in Knowify. I still just have the setup here to manage the cost to date and the invoice to date. So let's go ahead and create our first progress invoice here. Another one of the gaps that Knowify helps fill. So when I'm invoicing for an AIA project, I'll set in the date of the billing period. Knowify will let me toggle between percentage and dollar amounts and whether or not I want to be invoicing for stored materials. So we really do understand the contractor and all the things they manage on this type of project. And we try to make this as easy as possible for them. So now at this point, I can come in and enter a percentage that I billed for so far. I can always toggle to a dollar amount. And Knowify is going to help us keep track of exactly what we've billed for previously, what we still need to bill for. We show this on reports. We're going to show this every single time they create an invoice, so they don't need to leave this page to see what they billed for previously. Knowify is managing this. They can run reports on it, and they get to see it every step of the way. So they know exactly where they are in their billing, and we ensure they don't under or overbill.
Yeah, and make the assumption that if you have hours that you're tracking in terms of cost and you are tracking time in Knowify, once you select that you're going to send this invoice as of 4:30, it will automatically load the hours in there so you know what to charge on the labor side.
Yeah, we have a time and material invoicing style, so that's something that we do help automate. It wouldn't necessarily be for the AIA job. These types of jobs are generally fixed price. So regardless of the cost that we incur, we're always invoicing that fixed amount against their schedule of values. But Knowify does offer a time materials invoicing so that once labor is approved, we create an item that they can invoice for. So when they go to create their invoice, any time entries that are approved are already there for them. There's no guesswork needed.
So when you are creating the bid, you tell it whether it's going to be AIA style or lump sum or time and materials, right?
Exactly. We have standard fixed price with AIA billing, time and materials, or we have a recurring maintenance contract as well.
Perfect.
So before I finalize and send this to QuickBooks, I'm going to wind up just previewing this here. Just to give you an idea, I mean, we've seen some horror stories. People come to us with spreadsheets. This is not the easiest process to help manage these, especially when you don't have something that's automating it from pay application to pay application. And Knowify really helps fill this gap. We're going to send the payment due to the sales account and make sure that's on the accounting side. You will see that at the project level in QuickBooks. But this AIA invoice that we've prepared here, the G702 and G703 form, this is something that you will only find in Knowify.
Yeah, this is the one thing that for the few construction clients I've dealt with that have to do AIA style billing, this stuff takes hours and hours and hours. And not just that, it's extremely error prone. So they send it out and then the general contractor sends it back and says, hey, you're missing this, you're missing that. This percentage is wrong, this retainage is wrong. And this is like what you're seeing here is the cover sheet, because in the real world, there's actually there's like schedules that go behind this where you have to enter all this stuff for it to finally show up in that sheet. So, and there's some great templates that people use, but again, you're using templates, you're using Excel, it's extremely error prone.
Exactly. Like we mentioned earlier, the margin for error decreases when using Knowify because we're helping automate this process. And we know that the GC can reject paying one of these for even just the slightest mistake. So we really help trying to avoid that. I'm going to go ahead and finalize this one here. And Knowify warns me that I'm using this invoice in QuickBooks already. So I can, make sure that this one is going to make it across to QuickBooks to the right place. And then I can have this box checked off to send to QuickBooks. So you can see that by default, this one is checked off. Unless I actually go out of my way to uncheck it, Knowify is going to send this to QuickBooks. And you'll see that by the time I finish confirming and viewing the invoice, it'll already be there. We can also...
What I see interesting here is you can send the invoice to the client straight from Knowify, or you can just send it to QuickBooks, and then you can send the invoice to the client from QuickBooks. So you have both choices, whether you invoice from here or from QuickBooks.
Exactly. Well, I mean, you're always creating the invoice in Knowify, but that invoice is going to QuickBooks as if you were to create it manually in QuickBooks. You'll have the invoice that'll be the same thing on both sides. So it's completely up to the user where they would want to send it out. With these AIA jobs, we find sending it from Knowify just it makes a lot of sense because we're producing that document, whereas in QuickBooks we're just sending it over with the values for their standard. But for any other job, the idea of sending it out to the customer can be done in either Knowify or QuickBooks, as it'll be the same invoice that syncs across.
And one of the things I want to point out that I really liked from one of the clients that I had Notify with was that the if you have QuickBooks payments enabled in QuickBooks to receive payments via credit card or ACH being more common in the construction world because the margins are so small, people tend not to charge credit cards. But if you're using QuickBooks payments in QuickBooks Online and you send the invoice to QuickBooks Online, people can pay you through QuickBooks payments. But guess what? You can actually sync your QuickBooks payments accounts with Knowify as well. So if you happen to invoice from Knowify, people can also pay you through the same QuickBooks payments accounts. So it's not two separate credit card processors. A lot of third-party apps, they want to use their own third-party processor, and you end up having, if your clients pay you through QuickBooks, it goes through one system. If they pay you through the third-party app, they pay you through one system. You can actually use a single payment processor for whether or not you happen to have invoice from Knowify or have invoice from QuickBooks. You will always be creating the invoice in Knowify anyway, but in terms of how you sent it to the client. So I actually like that a lot. I find that to be a higher level of integration versus other apps that are out there.
Exactly. Great point. It's the same payments account, just completely up to the user which system they want to send it out from. And you can even send it out from both because, like we said, it is the same payments account that Knowify syncs to as well as QuickBooks. So here I have my Knowify invoice. I have it outstanding based on the due date that I had set. I get a little breakdown here. I can email this from Knowify. I can output the AIA invoice to a PDF or Word document. I can also see that we did send over a journal entry to QuickBooks with the retention amount here on this invoice. And I'm ready to move forward to my next one or track. This is now revenue on the job. I just want to highlight the fact that we have this green checkbox showing us that it is already in QuickBooks. So if I was to come here and refresh my browser, I'll be able to see this invoice show up as revenue against this project. Now, I haven't logged any cost yet, so I don't want to get overzealous with our 100% project profit margin, but you can see that the income has transferred accurately to QuickBooks here. I have that total amount, and we'll continue to do this with any future invoice, as well as any cost that are incurred against the job.
Now, one thing that's important to mention here, I just wanted to, Vin, sorry, because this is like more the accounting side of it, which is because there's a retainer, the revenue on the job is the entire amount that you put in the schedule of values, which is at 10,785. However, the customer is only supposed to pay you at this point that minus the retainer, which is why the open invoice amount is slightly different than the revenue. That's where that little note that you said, hey, there's a journal entry that's actually tying these two things together.
Exactly. And the integration is so seamless that I can easily bring myself to this invoice in QuickBooks with just a click. So you can see I click the sync status, I do view in QuickBooks, Knowify opens up a new tab, not only bringing me to QuickBooks, but bringing me to this exact invoice. And Hector, to your point, we had that revenue in there, but the balance due is less that retention. So that is automatically factored in. Now, again, to your point, we can send this out for payment through Knowify directly here. And this can be an option with any invoice that you sync from Knowify. You can send out through QuickBooks, or we can send it out through Knowify. It is entirely up to the user. What this is doing is it's having the same invoice on both sides. So wherever it gets paid, it will automatically sync and update the balance on the other side.
Vin, do you mind clicking on update layout? Because the new layout is going to change in the middle of May. So some people are going to be watching this after that. So they'll only be seeing the new version of the invoice. So for some context, it's good to see both versions of the invoice.
Awesome. Yes. Thank you, Hector. So this would be our updated layout. And again, we're syncing the invoice to QuickBooks, but it is the pay application, the AI invoice aspect, that's only going to be available within Knowify. But we are making sure that we're using the correct income service. We're syncing over descriptions and the exact amounts that are billed here to QuickBooks.
I think the last piece here that you can show in is show an expense inside Knowify, an expense that was related to the job, and show us the job costing report in Knowify, and then finally the job costing report in QuickBooks so we can kind of see full circle on this.
Yeah, absolutely. So I'll actually go through and just log a vendor invoice. We know that this will sync directly to QuickBooks. So at this point, we can go to this bill section here. In Knowify, I can hit add new and just start the process from any screen that I'm on in Knowify to add a vendor invoice here. I can do this by either closing out an open purchase order, or I can just select a vendor here and start entering my details. By default, when we pick a vendor under our new bill, this will show us any open purchase orders that we have. And you can see the PO that we created earlier in the session. So now I can add items from that PO. I can add partial items from the PO. And I can manually add new items and point them to a different job. So Knowify does allow us to take one invoice from a vendor and point it to each different job based on the different line items. So we're able to capture all of the costs in one place and have it distributed amongst the job cost accurately. I'm just going to enter a manual materials charge here. Maybe I'll do a little more so the profit looks a little more accurate. And you can see here, when I start typing in Knowify, we're going to search your Knowify catalog. Our catalog is going to be comprised of the products and services available in QuickBooks Online Advanced. And if I was to add this on the fly to my catalog in Knowify, this will sync directly back to the product service list in QuickBooks.
And this is particularly important if you want a particular item or product or service to hit a specific cost of goods sold account or expense account as you enter them, right? Because if you want to specify, where in the chart of accounts you ultimately want that expense to hit for your P&L, you want to pick an item that's already been mapped to a specific account, correct?
Exactly. That's a great point there. So we actually followed 3 different levels on our hierarchy when we sync to QuickBooks. The first thing we're going to check is if you're referencing a specific item. And if so, we're going to use the default income and expense account for that item. If we're not using an item, we allow you to set a default at the customer or vendor level. And if that's left blank, we have a standard company default we use. So that's a great point, Hector. Using the items allows you to get as detailed as possible. So again, we don't just sync this to QuickBooks, we sync it to the right place.
Which is great for the construction people that maybe are not too deep into like item mapping and account mapping. They can just move forward, type stuff, move forward, enter the transaction. They don't have to stop and create the item and think about the mapping. You have a default place where you can, as the accountant especially, if you're watching this and you're an accounting professional, helping your client set this up, you will set up a generic cost of goods sold account, a generic income account, and then just let the client do the work. Let them move forward. Let them track this stuff. And then later on, if you want to get granular, you can go back and edit and actually pick a particular item that hits a particular income or cost account. So I love the fact that you kind of have those 2 dimensions where you can work quickly or you can slow it down depending on how much in depth you want to go in each transaction.
Exactly. There's no wrong way to do it. You can be as detailed or as basic as needed and anything in between. So now my vendor invoice is set to sync to QuickBooks. Here it's working and it's already synced. So that happens that quickly. And this is now in QuickBooks. We'll show it against both of these QuickBooks projects. I have this pointed to 2 different projects here. And then we can actually check to see if anything was paid in QuickBooks. I can record payment here in Knowify that will sync to QuickBooks and vice versa. So to your point earlier, if we action this expense in QuickBooks and get it paid through QuickBooks or one of the other apps on the Intuit marketplace, as soon as it's paid, Knowify has a link to it. So we're going to pull that payment in and no longer show it as outstanding. We'll update that payment and balance here as well. So let's take a look at how this expense wound up coming across to QuickBooks. I set up my test account with like a very basic account mapping. So I'm just pushing everything to cost of goods sold, but this is being taken from the item level for these specific items. So if I had studs, copper, and materials mapped to different expense accounts, I would see 3 different categories here.
Perfect.
I get the amounts and I can see which customer and job this was pointed to. And now at the job level here, I see my cost, I see my invoice, I see my profit margin and profitability on the project. So we're still, I'm sorry, go for it.
Yeah. Now we're not going to have time to go into time tracking, but that is a major element of Knowify as well. So whether you run your timesheets inside QuickBooks Online and ultimately see your job costing only in projects in QBO, or if you want to see your job costing both in QBO and Knowify, then you would use the time tracking feature in Knowify, track your time there. You can assign your employees with a particular burden rate so that information comes over. But eventually, when you run payroll, you can run payroll through third-party payroll like ADP or whatever, or you can also run payroll inside QuickBooks because any timesheet you create in Knowify translates over to QuickBooks. It comes into the QuickBooks timesheets.
Exactly.
So can we see a job costing report in Knowify? Now we've seen what this looks like in projects in QuickBooks Online. What does it look like in Knowify?
Yeah, so I mean, we have, obviously in the web app, we're updating our summary every step of the way. So I can see, where I'm at with work in progress, with cost, revenue. I can see in my plan and track section how much I've costed, committed cost against my initial budget. And I can see this broken down at the phase level as well here. But Knowify offers a number of different job-specific reports here that I can track as well. So I think I'll highlight the project summary, which gives us a little bit of everything in Excel format here. But we also have reports here, and these are just job-specific. We also have company-level reports. There's a lot of stuff that we'll be able to show in this amount of time that Knowify does offer to help the contractors stay in the know. So, I mean, we can focus these reports on the overall performance, on specific labor, subs, and equipment costs, or on the contract and invoicing side of things as well. All right, so this opens up an Excel sheet, and this report is meant to show every aspect of the job. So there's going to be a lot of information here, but I think if we're going to show one report, it's better to show one that has the most information than one that's particularly targeted. So I can see, we'll start off with a summary here, just my totals to date across cost, projected profitability, actual profitability, and revenue. I can now get this actual versus budget on the cost level, and this is for each of my different types of cost here. So this is where classifying your cost in Knowify comes into play. So I'm able to see here at a glance how much I've costed against what I budgeted, not for a specific phase, not for the job as a whole, but for the type of cost that I've incurred. We also show this same view here at the phase level. So this is a little bit more specific to this job and what's important to me as the contractor. Different phases of the project, I can see exactly what's been costed, how much was budgeted. I can see at any given time how much is remaining for me to hit that budget or how much I've gone over budget by. And I can even see this broken out by cost category as well. We can see the contract here. Any change order that I have would show up here. I would see pending, out for signature, or approved as well. So this is basically anything that we are invoicing for, which at this point is just my line items / schedule of values. And I can see exactly the price of each of these and how much I billed so far on that first pay application. We'll also show individual purchases here as well. So right now I'm just going to have that one vendor invoice I created for materials, but we'll actually list everything here, and it gives us different columns that we can sort this information by. And this is our spreadsheet. This is our spreadsheet reporting. Obviously, something always available to you at the job level and across all jobs. But what people really like to see is our advanced reporting that's embedded within the product. So if I come back here into my home screen and go to the reports section, these are all my reports that span across all of my projects. And I can export these to a spreadsheet as well, but I have the ability to run advanced reports in Knowify. This way I can see the details of my report from within the system itself. So here I can choose from a number of different advanced report types. In this case, we have advanced jobs report. I can set a date range of my choice here. I can add additional filters, and Knowify will pull all jobs across this date range here and show me all the data that was entered for them. So I'm focusing specifically here on line 7 for the job that we had just looked into. So I can see some general information about the job, the start date, the end date. We can keep track of who is the sales lead and project manager of each of the projects. And this can be an internal employee. So it helps us evaluate our performance on jobs by some of our individual service techs and project managers. And these reports will span across every aspect of the project. So we'll start with the contract total, show how much has been invoiced so far, how much has been retained. I can see exactly how much has been paid against those invoices to date, any potential deposits or billable items. And then we start to move to the cost. I can see how much has been cost committed. I can see the cost budget. I can see the remaining budget amount. And this is for my cost as a whole. We go one step further here and break it out by each individual cost category. So I get those same detailed columns, but I can split it out by labor, materials, subcontractors, equipment, and our miscellaneous cost as well. Moving us to the end of the report, where we'll actually see our work in progress number at this date. I can see our profit percentage to this point. I can see the profit amount, and I can see our projected profitability if the rest of the project follows our budget and contract flow.
That's incredibly powerful, Ben. I assume that this is a lot of information for a single report. We could customize that and choose only which fields or which columns we want to see, right?
Exactly. We have the way for us to add or remove specific columns here so that this report is specific to what I need. And I can leave off anything that's not relevant to me in this case, and I can download as many iterations of this report as I need. So I can run this for specific columns, download and export. I can run it again. And like we see, it is embedded in the system, so we don't have to leave Knowify in order to gather this information in one place.
I know a lot of accountants saw when you click on the drop-down menu, it had a work in progress report as well, and people were jumping out of their chairs. Can we see what that looks like?
Yeah, absolutely. So, I mean, we do show a lot of that same information as the advanced jobs report, but the main draw of this report is that it will only include data in between these date ranges. So, for example, if I needed to run a report for 2023, or in this case, I'll keep it to 2024, Knowify will show me all of my projects here, but we're only going to show data that was entered during this time period. So again, a lot of the similar columns here as far as revenue, cost, but this is as of a certain date. So we're really bringing that solution to reporting of being able to get a snapshot of exactly how much cost we've incurred, invoiced, how much payments we've accumulated, how much we have out as of a certain date.
Right. So you can either do all dates or a particular date range. And it looks like these are all the active jobs. And if you click on include closed jobs, it would also include the jobs that have been completed. So you can basically run the entire performance of your construction company within a particular date range. Again, whether the jobs are active or closed, which is really nice.
Exactly. And then we have some additional filters as well.
That's awesome. So you have the option to run a detailed spreadsheet report. You have the option to run advanced reports. You have the option to go back to QuickBooks Online Advanced and see your reports in projects. Again, playing back to the theme that this could be a very customizable experience for your clients, whether they're a general contractor or a trade contractor. They're going to have different needs, different reporting needs, different workflow needs, and different data entry needs. It sounds like Knowify has covered all those bases. So could we go back to Knowify for a second? So I see that you have a super powerful spreadsheet that contains all the details. Mm-hmm. You don't have to look at it on the spreadsheet. You can see this information in reports, right?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, like our plan and track section is an active real-time report for our cost. Our contract section is showing us exactly what we've invoiced, exactly what we retained, and the individual balances for each item. So, I mean, our system acts as a real-time report. This is just if I wanted to export something to a PDF or a spreadsheet so that I have that information externally from Knowify. In addition to this, I have an activity section where I can keep track of everything pointed to the job, We'll highlight green if it's revenue increasing the profit. We'll highlight red if it is a cost that is decreasing the profit. And then again, our summary tab always updates, and our contract jobs page has a breakdown of that across all of our jobs at a glance.
That's amazing, Ben. I love this. In summary, I love the visual aspect of this screen, right? Where you kind of get to see the real information that's happening with the job. It's visual. It's got both graphs and numbers. You can collapse that and not have to see all the details. You can see all the details. You can see it in QuickBooks Online on the project side. You can see it in that super duper spreadsheet in a report. So I like that Knowify has paid close attention to the fact that every client is different. Every contractor business is different. Every user of these reports is different. Some people like to see numbers. Some people like to see graphs. Some people like to see spreadsheets. Some people like to see details. Some people like to see summary. So I like the fact that Knowify kind of can hit all of those worlds at the same time, and it can adapt to how that particular owner of that contractor business or that construction company or manager wants to see the reports and want to manage the books. Now, is there anything else you want to show before we go into what are the next steps are?
Yeah, I mean, it's impossible for me to show everything in Knowify. I mean, we have a number of different areas and additional features, but these are the main highlights here. These is just kind of highlighting the things that will affect just about every contractor using Knowify. But I will say, to your point, like, we try to make a solution that's available to everybody for different types of information, high level, more detailed. But one of the most rewarding things is for us is we like to see people grow with us. Start out by doing things high level and just basics, and then start to get into Knowify and use it for more detail and grow as contractors as we grow as a software.
Now, one important caveat I want to point out is that we are showing Knowify and QuickBooks Online Advanced work in tandem. So you can also track everything in QuickBooks Online Advanced in the project section. If you don't have QuickBooks Online Advanced, you can still use Knowify, correct? You just won't share reports in both sections, correct?
Right. I mean, it's taking, like, we do have some reports to help with open invoices and expenses, but QuickBooks is the go-to accounting system, and we won't be able to provide on accounting level what they do.
Right. But if you have QuickBooks Online Plus, for example, you can still use Knowify. You just won't see all the details in the projects page. And you would use Knowify for all the reporting, all the job cost reporting. So you can still use QuickBooks as your source of truth for accounting, but you don't necessarily have to have it in both the bookkeeping side and the project side if you use a lower version, the QuickBooks Online Advanced, correct?
That's correct. Yes, we do integrate with QuickBooks Online Plus, and I believe Essentials as well. So it's basically, it won't sync the level of detail to the project section here, but it's at least avoiding the need to double enter things.
It makes 100%. So it makes sense 100%. So Vin, what are the next steps? If I'm an accountant, I'm excited. I want to start seeing if this is going to work for my clients. I got some desktop clients. I want to move to QuickBooks Online. I want to know what my partnership with Knowify looks like. How do we start working together?
Yeah, well, I mean, we want to hear from you. We want you to see firsthand how we can help. I mean, you can find us through QuickBooks Online's Intuit's marketplace here. As we noted earlier, we are accountant approved. You can add us here, but really the best bet would be to go to knowify.com and request a demo. You can set up a free trial for your construction client, or if you have one in mind, and please feel free to reach out to us, because we want to hear from you. We want to help make sure that this solution is not just right for your contractor, but also make sure to take the time to hear out what they need. And then this way we can tailor a demonstration overview to what's important to them.
Thank you so much, Vin. I'll go ahead and put a link in the description of the video below as well, so you can click straight to it. Thank you very much, Knowify, for partnering with me and putting together this content. So for people to understand, what is the best way to run a construction or contractor company using QuickBooks Online and the third-party app. Thank you so much.